The luxurious banquet hall of the Ritz-Carlton felt stifling despite its soaring ceilings and opulent chandeliers. My father's banking industry awards ceremony was in full swing, champagne flutes clinking as financial elites exchanged stories about his legendary investment strategies. I sat quietly at the far end of our family table, pushing around my $200 filet mignon, trying to blend into the background, a talent I'd honed to perfection over the years. "And I'd like to recognize my daughter Victoria," Dad announced from the podium, his voice swelling with pride as he lifted his crystal flute. Recently named Young Physician of the Year at Memorial Hospital and chairwoman of 3 medical charity boards. My sister rose gracefully, practically glowing in the adoration that washed over her from every corner of the hall. Her Chanel gown probably cost more than what everyone assumed my entire company was worth. My stomach knotted as I watched her, always the golden child, the one who played her role perfectly, prestigious medical school, picture-perfect marriage, connections in all the right circles. "Thank you, Daddy," she beamed with practiced charm. "I could only succeed because you showed me how." I took a deep swig of champagne, my mind flooding with memories of "Why can't you be more like your sister?" echoing through my childhood. Every choice I made outside their prescribed path sparked that familiar look of disappointment: Stanford instead of Harvard Medical, launching my own AI startup instead of joining a prestigious hospital, wearing practical clothing instead of designer labels. "And then there's Olivia," my mother added with her society smile that never quite reached her eyes. "Still tinkering with her. What exactly is it you call your little project, darling?" "Artificial intelligence research and development," I corrected, my voice steady despite the fire in my chest. "My company creates cutting-edge AI solutions for?" Yes, Dad waved his hand dismissively, cutting me off mid-sentence. "Playing with computer code." Thank goodness Victoria understood the true meaning of building a legitimate career. His words stung like acid on raw skin, but I maintained my neutral expression through sheer force of will. If they only knew that my little project had transformed entire industries, that the modest office they dismissed as my hobby shop was merely a front for my global operations. "Have you heard about Victoria's stunning summer home in the Hamptons?" Mom gushed to her circle of socialites. 6 bedrooms, private tennis courts, and the most spectacular ocean views. "It's really not that impressive," Victoria said with that false humility I knew all too well. "Just a little weekend retreat. Though Olivia, you're welcome to use it sometime if you need a break from your startup. When we're not hosting, naturally." More polite laughter rippled through our table. I sipped my champagne and thought about my own properties: the penthouse overlooking Central Park, the vineyard estate in Napa Valley, the private island off the coast of Fiji, all carefully concealed under various corporate entities, shielded by layers of privacy protection. "Let's raise a glass," Uncle Philip announced, champagne flute held high, to Alexander Westbrook, who raised one extraordinarily successful daughter. "And Olivia," Aunt Catherine added with the obligatory afterthought tone. "She's doing her own thing." I watched my father's face. There it was, that subtle grimace that appeared whenever someone mentioned my name, as if my very existence was a burden he reluctantly shouldered. After the ceremony ended, I texted our family driver to bring my father's favorite whiskey to the presidential suite I'd booked upstairs. The plan forming in my mind made my heart race, but I felt eerily calm as I invited my family for a private celebration. In the opulent suite, my father loosened his black tie and raised his crystal tumbler. "What a night," he announced, chest puffed with pride. "This award confirms what I've always known, that hard work and traditional values build lasting success." He gestured toward Victoria. One of my daughters clearly understood what it takes to build a meaningful legacy. Victoria has made the Westbrook name respected throughout the medical community. The air in the room grew heavy. Even for him, the implication was cutting. "Alexander," my mother murmured, touching his arm. "Perhaps we should focus on—" "No, Eleanor, some things need to be said." He turned to face me directly, his eyes hard. "Olivia, you had every possible advantage: Stanford education, connections, every door opened for you. And what did you choose? To waste it all playing entrepreneur in some converted warehouse office. Do you know what my colleagues whisper? They ask what happened with my younger daughter. I placed my champagne flute down, feeling the cool crystal against my fingertips as it made a delicate ping against the marble side table. What happened? I repeated, my voice steadier than I expected. Yes, what happened? While your sister is saving lives and building a reputation in the medical community, what exactly are you doing? Coding on a laptop in some startup incubator? My mind flashed to the revolutionary midnight algorithm our team had perfected, the AI system poised to transform global finance and healthcare, and the acquisition offers from Silicon Valley giants that I'd rejected because 8 figures seemed insulting. Dad, Victoria interjected with her practiced diplomatic tone, Olivia's situation isn't so bad. She's supporting herself at least. Not everyone has the temperament for high-pressure professional success. That was Victoria, somehow managing to sound concerned while subtly undermining me. Self-supporting? Dad scoffed, his designer watch catching the light as he gestured dismissively. Is that our standard for success now? When I was 32, I was already managing billion-dollar portfolios. Your sister was chief resident at 30. But Olivia? She's chasing some fantasy of being the next tech genius with nothing to show but a website and business cards. I pulled out my phone, my thumb hovering over my portfolio app. For years I'd kept my success hidden, partly because I valued my privacy, partly because I'd been waiting for precisely this moment. Watching my father lecture about success while Victoria smirked knowingly, I felt something crystallize inside me. The time had come. You want to discuss real success, Dad? I opened the app, navigating past security layers to my primary investment account. About legacy? About making the Westbrook name significant? Olivia, my mother cautioned, diamond earrings catching the light as she shook her head. This is your father's special night. Let's not create drama. You're right, I said, rising slowly to my feet. This is a night for truth. The perfect gift for the man who values authentic achievement. We don't need another demonstration of your little app project, Victoria said with that condescending smile I knew so well. Though I'm sure it's very innovative. I turned my phone screen toward them, displaying it clearly for everyone to see. My portfolio value glowed in unmistakable figures, $63,457,892.41. And that represented just one of my accounts. The suite fell into stunned silence. I heard my mother's jewelry clink as her hand flew to her throat. That's... My father's voice faltered, a crack in his perfect facade. That can't be accurate. Oh, it's accurate. I pulled up a business news site featuring an interview with the masked founder of Westbrook Technologies. Or perhaps you know my company better as WT Innovations, the AI firm that's been making headlines for revolutionizing both financial and medical technology. Currently valued at just over $5.7 billion. Victoria's flawlessly maintained poise fractured visibly. WT Innovations? But they just rejected acquisition offers from Amazon and Alphabet worth billions. Rejected them because they were embarrassingly inadequate, I smiled, feeling a rush of satisfaction as my father's complexion turned ashen. Would you like to see the actual offers, Dad? The numbers might impress even you. Though they pale in comparison to what your disappointment daughter has built independently. You must be lying, he sputtered, his hand gripping the whiskey glass so tightly I thought it might shatter. This is some elaborate deception. I opened my laptop and pulled up the company's investor relations page. See for yourself. Though you won't easily find my name in the records. I value my privacy, the same privacy that allowed me to construct an empire while you were all too preoccupied with mocking my little computer hobby to notice what was happening. My mother had collapsed into a plush armchair, her carefully cultivated social mask completely dissolved. Victoria was frantically searching on her phone, her perfectly manicured fingers trembling slightly as headlines about WT Innovations populated her screen. Nearly $6 billion, I continued, my voice steady despite the emotions churning inside me. That's the current valuation of your underachieving daughter's company. That modest office in Soho? It's merely for appearances. Our actual headquarters occupies the top 5 floors of the Pinnacle building. You know, that skyscraper Victoria's Hospital has been desperately trying to lease space in? I own the entire structure. The silence in the suite was deafening. Every family member who had ever given me that pitying look sat motionless, drinks suspended halfway to their lips. But why keep this hidden from us? My mother finally managed, twisting her diamond bracelet anxiously. Have I really hidden it? I let out a soft, bitter laugh. When have any of you actually listened when I tried to explain my work? When has anyone in this family shown the slightest genuine interest in understanding what I do? I turned to my father, whose celebration had veered into territory he never anticipated. You wanted to discuss building a legacy, Dad? About making the Westbrook name significant? Well, in Silicon Valley, in the actual centers of innovation and future building, Westbrook already means something profound. Just not because of you. The aftermath of my revelation played out exactly as you'd expect from a family whose entire social structure was built on perceived success hierarchies. The expensive whiskey sat untouched, ice melting in crystal tumblers as everyone struggled to process this seismic shift in reality. Victoria recovered first, her medical training enabling her to compartmentalize. WT Innovations, they created the diagnostic AI platform. The system being implemented in major hospitals worldwide. She studied me with new eyes, reassessing everything she thought she knew about her younger sister. That's just one division, I said, settling back into my chair with newfound confidence. Our financial technology branch is equally revolutionary. We're transforming investment analysis in ways that will democratize wealth management for millions. My father was still struggling to formulate coherent thoughts. The Pinnacle building? That's a $500 million property in Midtown. Was a $500 million property, I corrected him. It's valued significantly higher after the sustainable technology renovations we implemented. Would you like to see the ownership documents? My mother's socialite reflexes finally activated. She reached across the marble coffee table for my hand, her emerald tennis bracelet sparkling under the chandelier. Darling, this is absolutely marvelous. Why did you keep this from us? We could have supported you, arranged key introductions. I withdrew my hand before she could touch me. Arrange introductions? Like when Dad advised the Whitneys not to waste capital on my hobby business? Or when he warned his banking associates to avoid my amateur venture? The carefully applied blush on her cheeks couldn't hide how pale she became as recognition dawned. 3 years ago, the Whitney family had expressed serious interest in early-stage funding. My parents had actively discouraged them, insisting I wasn't a worthwhile investment risk. We were trying to protect both parties, my father defended, his voice lacking its usual confidence. You, from the disappointment of inevitable failure, and them, from a poor investment decision. Protect them? I couldn't suppress my bitter laugh. The investors who did back my inevitable failure saw their initial funding multiply by 1,200% in just 14 months. The Whitneys recently attempted to purchase shares at current market valuation. I personally declined their offer. Uncle Philip leaned forward eagerly, his earlier condescension completely evaporated. Olivia, regarding my daughter's healthcare analytics platform. No, I interrupted firmly, meeting his gaze. I'm not evaluating investment opportunities from family members. That ship has sailed. But we're family, Victoria protested, maternal authority creeping into her voice. Doesn't that count for something? I turned to face her, memories flooding back of how she'd flaunted her accomplishments at every family gathering. Does it? Like when you persuaded the medical board at Memorial not to pilot my company's diagnostic AI system? For their protection, as you phrased it in that email. Her perfectly composed expression faltered with genuine embarrassment. That system, rejected because of her interference, had been adopted by their competing hospital network, the same network now outperforming Memorial in diagnostic accuracy using my company's technology. I had no idea it was your system, she whispered, her voice uncharacteristically small. No, you didn't. None of you knew because none of you bothered to know. I stood up, setting my champagne flute on the table with deliberate care. You were all so certain you understood what success should look like: a corner office, a prestigious title, vacation properties in the Hamptons. It never occurred to you that genuine world-changing success might take a completely different form. Sit down, my father ordered, his banker's authority reasserting itself. We need to discuss this as a family. Your company, the potential synergies? Synergies? I raised an eyebrow, feeling a strange mix of satisfaction and sadness. So now that you've discovered I'm worth billions, suddenly my little computer project deserves family discussion? Don't be obstinate, Olivia, my mother implored, anxiety crossing her perfectly maintained features. Your father is simply trying to process this. We all are. This is rather overwhelming information. I surveyed the suite at my assembled family, aunts, uncles, cousins, who had spent years regarding me with thinly veiled pity while celebrating Victoria's conventional achievements. Now they watched me with transparent calculation, mentally rewriting the narrative of every past interaction. You know what's truly ironic? I said, picking up my modest handbag. I used to fantasize about this exact moment, revealing everything I've built, proving all of you wrong. But standing here now, I've realized something important. Your validation ceased to matter to me a very long time ago. Olivia, please, Victoria rose gracefully, her clinical composure partially restored. We should discuss this rationally. Perhaps there are collaborative opportunities between your technology and my medical practice. Collaborative opportunities? I couldn't suppress a laugh that contained years of dismissed ideas. So now that you recognize who I really am, you're interested in exploring business ventures? What happened to my amateur startup? My father set his tumbler down with enough force to slosh whiskey onto the custom marble. That's enough. I won't have you turning my award celebration into this theatrical display. If you've built something worthwhile, congratulations. But your attitude. My attitude? I interrupted, my voice cutting like a scalpel. You mean compared to your attitude 10 minutes ago when you practically called me a failure in front of our family? Or your attitude throughout the past 5 years when you couldn't spare 30 minutes to visit my office despite my repeated invitations? He fell silent, and in that silence, I witnessed something entirely new, doubt clouding his features. For the first time in my memory, my father wasn't absolutely certain of his position. I removed a sleek folder from my bag and placed it on the coffee table. I brought you something, Dad. You'll find these documents particularly interesting. Financial records of Westbrook Investment Partners from the past 3 quarters. My AI system flagged your firm's concerning trading patterns months ago. The suite exploded into chaos. My mother's hand flew to her throat. Victoria began frantically checking her phone, likely verifying what I'd just revealed. My father stared at the folder as though it contained a venomous snake. This information is private, he finally stammered. Not to someone with my resources. My AI financial monitoring system identified the irregular trading patterns and high-risk position taking. Your firm is 3 months from insolvency. I looked directly into his eyes. But I'm prepared to offer a solution. WT Innovations can provide both capital injection and algorithmic restructuring. You can't possibly. He began. Actually, I can. Isn't this exactly the strategic thinking you've always preached? I maintained steady eye contact. Don't worry, this isn't about revenge. You're welcome to accept my offer or seek funding elsewhere. Though, I paused meaningfully, in the current market, with your firm's reputation, you might want to consider who holds the decision-making power at most major banks. I turned to leave, but Victoria caught my elbow. Wait, at least meet me for coffee next week. Just to talk. Sister to sister. I gently disengaged her hand. I'm afraid my schedule is completely booked. I'm finalizing the implementation of our diagnostic AI system at New York General. You know, the same system you convinced Memorial's board was untested and risky? I watched the color drain from her face. Don't worry about it. I'm sure your hospital administration will understand when their competitors' success rates are published. After all, it's simply business, right? Olivia, my mother called out as I reached the suite's door. What exactly do you want from us now? I paused, genuinely considering her question. For most of my life, what I wanted was your recognition, your understanding, your genuine support. Now, I don't want anything from you. That's the liberating thing about true success. It clarifies what genuinely matters and what never did. As I stepped into the hotel's private elevator, I heard the commotion erupting behind me in the suite. My phone immediately began vibrating, first Victoria, then my mother, followed by a cascade of messages from relatives who had suddenly discovered my existence in their contact lists. I slid into my waiting Tesla, nodding to Rachel, my driver. Back to the gallery, please. Everything all right, Ms. Westbrook? She asked, catching my expression in the rearview mirror. Better than ever, I replied, watching the hotel shrink in the rearview mirror. I've just given my father the award he didn't expect, a chance at redemption through truth. Instead of heading to my office, Rachel drove me to my private gallery space, a converted industrial loft in Chelsea that housed my carefully curated modern art collection. This was my true sanctuary, where tech genius met artistic passion, the side of myself I'd never shared with my family. As I entered the gallery's soft lighting, I finally reviewed the messages flooding my phone. Mom, please call, darling. We must discuss this situation as a family. Victoria, we need to talk. There's more to the Memorial Hospital situation than you know. Dad, your behavior tonight was unprofessional. Call me to discuss terms. Uncle Philip, regarding my daughter's healthcare analytics proposal. I archived them all without responding and opened my secure email, where my executive team had sent the latest partnership agreements. WT Innovations was preparing to unveil our next-generation emotional intelligence algorithm, technology that would transform human-computer interaction forever. My influence and resources would likely expand exponentially by next quarter. My thoughts were interrupted when Madeline, my personal assistant, approached with a concerned expression. Your sister Victoria is downstairs. She insists on seeing you and says she won't leave until you agree. I glanced at the security feed on my tablet. There she stood in the gallery's reception area, still in her formal gown from the ceremony, though her perfect composure had noticeably deteriorated. I considered my options, feeling something unexpected, not satisfaction or vindication, but a faint curiosity. Tell her I have 15 minutes, I said, surprising myself. Bring her to the Rothko room. Madeline nodded and departed. On my tablet, I watched Victoria receive the message, her expression shifting from determination to momentary relief. As I waited, I gazed at the vibrant Rothko painting dominating the room, fields of color expressing complex emotions without words. For years, I'd allowed their confined definition of achievement to diminish me. Now I understood that real success isn't measured by proving others wrong, but by creating something meaningful regardless of recognition. I heard Victoria's footsteps approaching and turned to face her. She stopped in the doorway, taking in the stunning gallery space with visible shock. Art collection, she asked quietly, a genuine question without her usual judgment. Everyone needs something that feeds their soul, not just their reputation, I replied. She nodded slowly, a flicker of understanding, perhaps the first real understanding, passing between us. About the hospital system, she began hesitantly. We can discuss it, I said, gesturing to the minimalist seating area. As equals. As she sat down, I sensed something shifting in our relationship's foundation. Not forgiveness yet, but possibility. After all, transformative technologies aren't built by those seeking approval, they're created by those willing to reimagine established systems. And I had just begun to reimagine mine.